E aka rangatira, tēnā koutou katoa, ka nui te honore, ki te mihi kia koutou. Well, good morning everyone. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to address this important food protection forum. And I would like to repeat Martin's greeting and welcome to you all. I begin by acknowledging Vice Minister Thong Tiata of the China Food and Drug Administration. I also acknowledge our important speakers that have joined us here today, including Professor Alan Riley, Dr. John W. Larkin, Frank Yanis and Professor John Spink. It is a tribute to both them and to the organisations that you represent that you understand the opportunity that this Food Protection Forum represents for us. So, great lineup of speakers, fantastic attendance by people who can make things happen. We've got a lot going on here today. Food is a complex business that is evolving at pace. We live in an environment that is defined by informed consumers who have growing expectations about their food, its production, and also about the businesses that produce it. If it was ever true, it is certainly no longer the case that the food sector can think about food safety in a narrow sense. The modern supply chain is complex. It requires us to think of food safety in terms that encompass all three aspects of food production. So I would like to discuss today how we can broaden our concept of food protection to include food integrity and food defence, as well as food safety. This multifaceted concept of food protection will drive our thinking towards a food safety culture, a culture that prioritises the practices and systems that produce safe food and protect customers. My priority is that we, as a country, continue to build and strengthen our food safety system. That way we will continue to deliver food of the highest levels of safety and integrity to New Zealanders and also to the world. When it comes to food protection, let's start with food safety. Ensuring the safety of food produced in New Zealand and sold to consumers, both domestic and international, must still be our #1 priority. We can achieve this with the systems we build and through the culture we encourage. But it cannot be regulated or legislated into being. A culture is a way of thinking, it's not a checklist. When it comes to food integrity, our reputation relies on the fact that our food is safe and of the highest quality. This assists Kiwi businesses to achieve their ambitions for growth and for success. Within this space, we're dealing with food fraud, for example, the adulteration of products, mislabelling and counterfeiting. As supply chains extend, this is an area of increasing concern for food-producing nations as we strive to continue to have that high-quality reputation for food. And moving on to food defence. This, of course, is a newer frontier for us here in New Zealand. We must be vigilant in our pursuit of food defence against deliberate and malicious tampering for political or ideological reasons. As Martin has already alluded, we had our most notable experience with this concept in November of last year. As a minister at the time of food safety for only about a month, it was a pretty rude awakening, I can tell you. I was thinking to myself, if this is what the future holds, goodness, it's going to be an interesting ride. The criminal threat to contaminate infant formula and other formula with 1080 tested our ability to respond to such threats. On the whole, this experience went as well as we could have hoped, and we developed new abilities along the way. I hope today is going to present an opportunity for you to consider and discuss the challenges implicit in each of these three aspects of food protection. So why should we care about this broader sense of food safety that includes the different areas of food protection? Well, for me, food means family. And we all know the lengths that we go to protect our families. I get this. That's why I put in my biography, biography as a politician. I am proudly a mother. So when I stood alongside the Prime Minister and Minister Nathan Guy to talk to the public of New Zealand about that threat to contaminate infant and other formula with 1080, and was asked what my message was to the families of New Zealand, I felt it as a mother, and I knew what I was saying would come back to haunt me should anyone die. So we have a huge responsibility, and every person in this room has their own share of that responsibility. Instinctively, we know that protecting our families is more than keeping them safe from physical harm. It is this embracing sense of protection that we must bring to bear on our food system, one that puts the consumers at the forefront of everything we do. We live in an interconnected world, one which delivers complex challenges to businesses and regulators alike. Technical advances and globalisation have had profound effects on the complexity of production, of processing and also supply chains. So, how are we going to respond to those challenges? Our response must be defined by cooperation. For producers and processors, this means taking the opportunity to adopt business practices of the highest standard. For retailers and exporters, it means insisting on the highest standards from your suppliers and communicating these effectively to your customers. For government and regulators, it means engaging with and supporting food businesses to achieve those outcomes. Furthermore, it means forming true partnerships with our trading partners. Failure in one part of that system means failure for all. So we must work together to achieve our shared goal, safe and high quality food reaching our consumers. To move on to food safety incidents, the supply chain for a single modern food product can include a startling number of companies, of countries and of components. As a result, businesses have to be increasingly vigilant to ensure the safety of their products. The importance of our food safety and protection systems became even more apparent after that one recent incident. That incident in November last year a threat to contaminate infant and other formula with the poison 1080 was to achieve a political outcome, and it used fear and it failed. However, it did test the strength of our systems and ultimately showed our ability to adapt and be effective in driving off the risks of such a threat. Whilst we already believed in the fundamental robustness of our food safety system, it tested how we could adapt it to close weak points in a supply chain. The New Zealand Government implemented additional measures to ensure the safety of our consumers, and those included extending milk and milk product testing, including our new 1080 testing program, ensuring dairy processing facilities were maintaining the highest level of security and vigilance, and working with all supply chain elements to highlight the least secure points in the journey from production to consumer. In responding to the incident, everyone involved in the New Zealand food system showed the calm and efficient cooperation necessary. This is why today's Food Protection Forum is so important. It is about cooperation between government, industry and academia in delivering food protection. Today's presentations by Professor Spink and Dr. Larkin will, I believe, be particularly thought-provoking in that particular context. So, how do we meet the challenges? Well, we rely on many factors. We need optimal, sustainable production and processing to meet what will be growing demands. We need smart, adaptable, risk-based regulation to better prepare for the changing food production and export landscapes. We need international cooperation, and we need to better communicate the complexity of the food system to our consumers. As it happens, New Zealand already excels in many of these areas. But given the challenges of this new environment, there may be some who enviously look back a few decades to a trading environment that seemed very peaceful and very simple. However, with the new challenges come new opportunities. The ability of New Zealand food businesses to create value-adding brands, to access new domestic and international markets, and connect directly with consumers has never been greater nor more necessary. There is increased demand from consumers for more transparent food production at the same time as food production has become more complex. People are increasingly wanting to access the information that they seek about the products that they buy. And they want information that is beyond that this food is safe to eat. Their choices are increasingly values-driven. There is arguably nowhere that this is more deeply felt than in the food space, with its connections that many of you will recognise in your own lives to health, to family, to values and to tradition. To those of you calculating whether this helps or hinders New Zealand's goal of being a supplier of safe and high quality food, I say it helps us, but it creates the challenges we're going to have to rise to. New Zealand actively welcomes openness and transparency. We're proud of the way we do things. In fact, sometimes people wonder at our level of transparency. We know how strong our systems are. We know how safe our processes are, and we know how high quality our products are. I want to move on briefly to the Food Act 2014. As the food industry evolves its practices to respond to people's expectations, the government has an important role to play in supporting and enabling businesses. This outlook is exemplified by the implementation of the Food Act 2014. It's a landmark piece of legislation, and it will shape the food space for coming decades. And of course, as you all know, its gestation itself was longer than a decade. It's a part of an ongoing commitment to modernise the system to protect consumers and provide business with the flexibility that they require. Under the old model, government officials were frequently involved in the micromanagement of the safety aspects of food operations. There was little flexibility for businesses to tailor their food safety processes to meet their needs and their individuality. The new Act recognises that each business is different, and it operates on a sliding scale where higher risk food businesses will have to operate under more stringent food safety requirements than lower risk food businesses. But it also allows business to manage their food safety risks in ways that suit their business. Moving on to a food safety culture. I'm sure that safe food is not an accident. It's the result of combined actions of everyone involved. The government obviously plays a role in setting policy and laws, but food safety cannot be inspected into a business. Understanding and prioritising food safety has to be embedded in the behaviour of everyone in that complex supply chain that produces New Zealand food. This food safety culture you will hear a lot more about today, and I'm particularly looking forward to hearing the expert opinion of Frank Yanis and Professor Riley on that subject. Food safety culture is the alignment of values and behaviours with respect to food safety. It has to be led from senior management and embedded in the organisation, and the last person taken on to work in that particular business will need to understand it from the day they start. This will empower frontline staff to achieve the highest standards of food safety. There are encouraging signs of an effective food safety culture from many parts of our industry. As you know, our food industry cares deeply about the safety of your consumers and about the reputation for safety and responsibility that comes with being part of Brand NZ. Remember that reputations that were years in the making can be gone in a couple of days, completely unravelled. That is why I consider food safety culture vital to our long-term prosperity and integrity of our food system here. And it's one area where all stakeholders in the food system share responsibility, and again, we must be working together for that common goal. Improving our culture will require positive action from every one of us. But I'm sure you'll agree, it's going to be worth it. Our reputation is built on New Zealand companies making safe and high quality products. I challenge you to tackle head on, in the spirit of the Rugby World Cup, the issues we need to address to protect our food as it travels within and outside of New Zealand's borders. I challenge you to be specific, to be practical, and to leave with a commitment to follow up in your business, your sector, or your field of research. Food protection should be at the centre of everything we do. And I'm really glad to have had the opportunity to address you this morning. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day and hearing from, this is going to be a little unusual because quite often I can't stay for the whole day, but I'm going to be here for most of today. Looking forward to hearing from the other speakers. I hope that what you hear and the discussions you have with others in the room proves valuable for you and for the work that you do. I thank you for taking the time to be here with us. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.